I'm Emma, and this is Andy. We've been on our journey to have a family for 8.5 years.
Yeah.
We got married a bit later. Andy, you're 50 now and I'm 43. So we'd been on this journey a long time. We had several miscarriages before we started having investigations and tests to see if any issue could be identified. And that was all on the NHS. And unfortunately, we didn't really get any answers. So we had a number of losses. And we felt like we'd reached a dead end, to be honest, with the NHS. One of the times I was in the early pregnancy unit, I was handed a card with Sam's name on and a charity. And I reached out to Sam, and it just kind of changed everything for us, really.
As a man, you feel like you want to be able to provide the support and the answers, and you know, when you're part of what's happening, that can be really hard. And it was, I'm personally dealing with my own, feelings of loss and grief through the miscarriages that we'd had to that date. So when Emma was in touch with that sort of peer support group within the charity, there was a burden lifted off both of us, I think, in terms of that having to try and cope with the weight of it on your own. Your family and everybody is great and you get sympathy, but when it's happening to you and when it's focused on you and you don't really have anybody else that's going through that with you at the time.
We'd had 5 losses at the point that we contacted the charity.
No loss is easy, but it's definitely harder each time it happens. That each time there's the hope, but then there's the fear that's just magnified every single time that you go through it, and we were questioning our ability to be able to deal with that, because by the 5th loss, it was so emotionally draining that we just weren't sure that we would be able to carry it on, even though it was what we wanted more than anything in the world.
So I found out I was pregnant again in January 2023. And we used the immune treatment protocol. And I got to 16.5 weeks with our baby boy, Finn. But unfortunately, we had a scan at 16.5 weeks and found out that he was really poorly. He had high drops, and basically he didn't survive, unfortunately.
I think that we'd be, because we were getting the support from the charity, that we'd managed to find a new direction that had felt like it had fundamentally changed things for us. We had a new sense of hope with Finn. There was still the fear at every single scan that we'd always had, that we weren't going to see that heartbeat, and we were always prepared for that. But every subsequent scan that we got further, and we were practically having them at one a week at one stage, we actually started to believe that this was going to happen for us. It was finally going to happen. I don't think there's anything that can prepare anyone for having to go through the delivery of your baby that you wanted so much, to have him and hold him and meet him.
Yeah.
And for him to be sleeping, that's where the charity stepped in such a way that if they hadn't, I don't know what we would have done.
Chasing Rainbows just pulled me through anyway. You know, the constant support. And I think even Sam herself, you know, I think, I don't know what I would have done without her. You know, she was there for us just whenever we needed it, wasn't she?
Just on so many levels. It wasn't just the emotional support that they gave you, it was the practical support. I think about people that are going to go through that or have gone through that and they haven't got access to the charity or don't know about the charity.
We were offered a post-mortem on Finn to try and identify why he became poorly the way he did. And we did take that option. When we did get the results back, it identified that Finn may have had a metabolic condition which may have been inherent, but it did suggest that we be referred for genetic testing to get some more information, not only to give us answers about what happened to Finn, but also as to how that might affect future pregnancies going forward. The waiting time for those tests was 2+ years. And given that me and Andy were trying for a family later in life, we just didn't have that time to wait. But they gave us an option of having those tests being fast-tracked at the point that I fell pregnant again.
That decision to whether we go through it again was a tough one. Again, I think without the support of the charity and Sam, I'm not sure we would have been brave enough to attempt again. But we went through a final round of IVF.
I became pregnant in June 2024. We had various scans in the early stages of pregnancy, which were okay. And then when we notified the Leeds Genetics that I was pregnant again, they talked to us about tests they could run to identify, like I said, you know, what if they could identify any inherent genetic issue. It identified that me and Andy were both carriers of a very, very rare condition called Farber's disease, which even the genetics doctors in Leeds didn't have much information on, because it was so rare. There were less than 200 cases in the world. And basically, we had more chance of winning the lottery than me and Andy both being carriers of this disease. Basically, there is a 1 in 4 chance of you both passing the gene on in each pregnancy, which meant there was a 3 in 4 chance of not passing it on. But given our history, we focused on the 1 in 4. The initial round of testing identified that Andy had passed on his gene, so that 1 in 4 chance then went to 1 in 2. We had a 50-50 chance of the current pregnancy being okay. So we had another 3 weeks, I think.
Which took us to the point that with this pregnancy that we lost Finn.
At that point, the group of women, Sam, you know, everyone at the charity was so invested in our journey. You know, people just checking in all the time. It was incredible, really. And I think without that, I don't really know. I mean, I don't know how we did get through those weeks anyway. But without the support of everyone at Chasing Rainbows, I don't know how we would have done it. And then at 18 and a half weeks, we got a call from the doctor
At Leeds.
Who'd been a brilliant support to us, hadn't she? And she told us that my gene wasn't present. So our baby was okay. And now we have our rainbow baby. Now we have our rainbow baby James, who genuinely would not be here without Chasing Rainbows.